The observation deck of the Ralnorian diplomatic vessel hummed with quiet energy as Commander Taho Kim studied the data readings. His vessel hung in the darkness of space, just beyond the orbit of the fourth planet in this unremarkable system. The Ralnorian Federation, an alliance of 3 technologically advanced species, had dispatched his team after detecting unusual energy signatures from this region. Analysis complete, Commander, reported Science Officer Juwu, her 6-fingered hands dancing across the console. The tall, blue-skinned alien's head tendrils twitched with excitement. The species calls themselves humans. Their technology appears primitive. Taho nodded, his dark eyes fixed on the approaching vessel. It was small, utilitarian, with none of the elegant curves characteristic of Ralnorian design. Yet something about it made him uneasy. Primitive, perhaps, he murmured, but look at their power distribution. It's inefficient, but innovative. First Officer Min-hyuk joined them, his scaled skin reflecting the blue light of the displays. They've responded to our communication. They're sending a delegation. 3 days later, Taho found himself sharing a meal with Captain Gina Park of the Earth Diplomatic Corps. She was shorter than him, with intelligent eyes that missed nothing. Your faster-than-light technology is remarkable, she said, sampling the synthesized Earth cuisine the Ralnorians had prepared. Different from our approach entirely. And what approach would that be? Asked Min-hyuk, trying to hide his dismissive tone. Gina smiled. We're still testing, but you'll see soon enough. Taho watched as Gina took another bite of the food. Something about her confidence troubled him. The Ralnorian database classified humans as a Level 3 species, capable of interplanetary travel but centuries away from true interstellar capability. Yet here they were, already sending ships to nearby star systems. Your colony on Mars is quite impressive, Taho offered. We did not expect a species so young to expand so quickly. Gina nodded. Necessity drives innovation, Commander. Earth became crowded. We needed room to grow. Min-hyuk leaned forward. Our records show your first spaceflight was less than 200 years ago. Most species take twice that time to establish permanent off-world colonies. We're impatient, Gina replied with a small laugh. It's both our best and worst quality. The meal continued with polite conversation, but Taho noticed how Gina skillfully avoided sharing details about human military capability. Each time Min-hyuk probed, she redirected the conversation to cultural exchange or scientific cooperation. After the meal, Taho walked Gina to the shuttle bay. They paused at the large viewport, Earth visible as a blue-green jewel in the distance. You've been watching us for some time, haven't you? Gina asked suddenly. Taho tried not to show his surprise. What makes you say that? You know too much about us, our development timeline, our colonies. Yet we only detected your presence 3 weeks ago. Taho hesitated, then decided honesty might be best. Yes, the Federation monitors developing spacefaring species, for their protection and ours. And what have you concluded about humans? That you are. Taho searched for the right word. Unexpected. Gina smiled. We get that a lot. 2 weeks later, the Ralnorian diplomatic team was invited to Earth. Their shuttle descended through fluffy white clouds toward a sprawling city beside an ocean. Juwu pressed her face against the viewport, her tendrils quivering with excitement. So much water, she whispered, and they build right next to it. Taho understood her amazement. Ralnorian worlds were mostly desert, water carefully managed and recycled. Here, humans used it for recreation, for beauty. Their shuttle landed at a military base outside the city. Taho was surprised. He had expected a civilian reception center. As they disembarked, he noticed the heightened security. Soldiers stood at attention, their weapons visible but not aimed. Gina greeted them, now wearing a formal military uniform adorned with medals and insignia. Welcome to San Diego, Earth's Pacific Fleet headquarters. Fleet? Min-hyuk questioned. Our scans showed only 16 space-capable military vessels in your system. Yes, Jinna agreed. That's correct. She led them to a large building overlooking a harbor. Below, massive gray vessels floated on the water. Some were as long as their diplomatic ship. Ocean vessels, Taiho remarked. Interesting that you maintain them in the space age. We have many military traditions, Jinna explained. Some practical, some ceremonial. Inside, they were shown to a conference room where several high-ranking officers waited. Admiral Dongwon, a stern-faced man with silver hair, stood to greet them. The Federation Council sends its regards, Taiho said formally. We hope this marks the beginning of peaceful relations between our peoples. Peace is always preferred, Admiral Dongwon replied. But peace requires understanding. The meeting that followed was direct. The humans wanted to know about threats in nearby space. They asked detailed questions about weapons capabilities, defense systems, and territorial disputes. Taiho answered carefully, sharing only information that was common knowledge. The Stherian Empire is perhaps the greatest concern in this sector, he explained. They've expanded aggressively over the last century. Expanded how? Asked a young officer named Shunho. They conquer, Minhyuk said bluntly. They take worlds they want and eliminate resistance. And the Federation's response? Jinna asked. Taiho shifted uncomfortably. We maintain strong defensive positions around our core worlds. The Federation is not an aggressive power. Meaning you let them take what they want so long as it's not yours, observed Admiral Dongwon. The room fell silent. Taiho had no good answer. Later, as the Ralnorians were shown to their quarters, Ju pulled Taiho aside. They're preparing for war, she whispered. Did you notice their production facilities? They're building ships. Many ships. Impossible, Taiho replied. Their technology isn't advanced enough. Maybe not by our standards, Ju said, but they're doing it anyway. That night, Taiho couldn't sleep. He stood at the window of his room, watching Earth's single moon rise over the ocean. His communication device chimed, a priority message from the Federation Council. New energy signatures detected. The message read, human activity in the asteroid belt has increased 5-fold. Large-scale mining operations underway. Request assessment of military potential. Taiho sighed. He'd already submitted his preliminary report, but the Council was growing concerned. Humans moved too quickly, adapted too readily. They didn't follow the normal development patterns. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Jinna stood outside, holding a datapad. Sorry to disturb you so late, she said. But there's something you should see. She handed him the pad. On it was a star chart showing a system near the edge of human space. A flashing red marker indicated unusual activity. Our outpost detected unknown ships entering this system yesterday, Jinna explained. We believe they're Stherian scouts. Taiho felt a chill. That's impossible. The Stherians are still at least 12 light-years from your territory. Apparently not, Jinna replied grimly. We need to know everything about them. Commander, not the sanitized diplomatic version. Everything. Taiho looked from the pad to Jinna's determined face. In that moment, he understood why the Federation Council was concerned. Humans didn't respond to threats with fear. They prepared. They built. They armed themselves. The Stherians are more advanced than you, he said finally. Their weapons technology surpasses even the Federation's in some areas. Jinna nodded. Then we'd better get to work, hadn't we? The Stherians have crossed the Daesong Nebula, announced Admiral Sunwoo, his hologram flickering above the war table. 3 colony worlds are now under direct threat. 6 months had passed since first contact, and the diplomatic mission had evolved into something more complex. The Ralnorian High Council had been monitoring the expansion of the Stherian Empire with growing concern. And the humans? Asked Councillor Yuno, the eldest of the Ralnorian representatives. Directly in the Stherians' path, Sunwoo confirmed. They've requested our assistance. Absurd, Yunho dismissed. Their technology is centuries behind ours, and even we cannot stand against the Stherians in open warfare. Tahoe, now stationed permanently in human space as an official liaison, attended the council meeting remotely. With respect, the humans are adaptable. Since our arrival, they've developed technology at an alarming rate. Not alarming enough, Yuno replied. Recommend they surrender outlying territories to preserve their homeworld. Later that week, Tahoe sat in a secure facility beneath Seoul, Earth's ancient capital. Across from him, Defense Minister Do-yeon studied a classified report. The Relnorian Federation won't help us, Do-yeon asked, though it wasn't really a question. They believe resistance is futile, Tahoe admitted. They don't know we've been watching your orbital construction projects. Do-yeon's eyes narrowed. And what do you think you've seen? Something impossible, Tahoe replied honestly. Defense Minister Do-yeon closed the classified report and leaned back in his chair. The underground facility hummed with activity. Through the glass walls, Tahoe could see dozens of humans working at computer stations, monitoring screens filled with star charts and ship movements. Show me what you know, Do-yeon said. He pressed a button, and the windows turned opaque, ensuring privacy. Tahoe hesitated. Sharing Federation intelligence with humans violated protocol. But after 6 months living among them, watching their determined preparations, he'd developed an unusual feeling: respect. The Stherian fleet includes 7 dreadnoughts, each capable of destroying a planet's entire defense system within hours, Tahoe explained. They've conquered 11 worlds in the past 3 decades. No species has successfully repelled them. Do-yeon nodded. And the Relnorian Federation has a policy of non-interference. Self-preservation, Tahoe corrected. We maintain a buffer zone of neutral systems between our territories and theirs. It's kept peace for nearly a century. Until now, Do-yeon observed. Until they set their sights on human space. Yes. Do-yeon tapped a sequence on his tablet. A 3-dimensional map appeared above the table, showing the position of human colonies in relation to approaching Stherian forces. They'll reach New Horizon in approximately 43 days, Do-yeon said. Our most distant colony. 2,000 settlers, mostly scientists and miners. You cannot defend it, Tahoe said gently. The Stherians will interpret any military response as aggression against their empire. They'll escalate immediately. Do-yeon's expression remained calm. What would you do, Commander Kim, if these were your people? The question caught Tahoe off guard. I would follow council wisdom. Surrender the outlying territory to preserve the core worlds. Abandon our people to slavery or worse. Evacuate them if possible. The Stherians sometimes allow civilian withdrawals before they claim a system. Do-yeon stood and walked to a wall that slid open at his approach. Behind it was a larger operations center, 3 times the size of the meeting room. Here, military personnel worked at stations monitoring something Tahoe couldn't immediately identify. Come with me, Do-yeon said. They entered an elevator that descended deep into Earth's crust. When the doors opened, Tahoe found himself in an enormous cavern. Before him stretched an underground lake, and on that lake floated a partial spacecraft unlike any he had seen in human space. Its hull was dark, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Workers swarmed over it like insects, welding, testing, assembling. Project Thunderchild, Do-yeon said quietly. Our answer to the Stherian threat. Tahoe stared in disbelief. This is not possible. Your technology level was assessed based on what we allowed to be seen, Do-yeon finished. We've been aware of other spacefaring races for decades, Commander. Your Federation isn't as subtle in its observations as it believes. The revelation stunned Tahoe. His people had been watching Earth for nearly 60 years, collecting data, assessing development. The humans had known all along. This vessel, Tahoe began, studying its unusual configuration. The power requirements alone would exceed anything your civilization could generate. Do-yeon smiled. 6 months ago, yes, But we're fast learners, Commander. Your faster-than-light drive provided interesting insights. You've been reverse engineering our technology, improving it, Do-hyun corrected. Your designs are elegant but conservative. We took a different approach. Tahoe watched as a massive component was lowered into the vessel's central cavity. The workers cleared the area quickly, and protective shields rose around the installation zone. "What is that?" he asked. "The core, a combination of antimatter containment and fusion reactor." Tahoe turned to Do-hyun in alarm. "That's theoretically impossible. The energy's wooled." "Theoretically, yes," Do-hyun agreed. "But theory has limitations. We prefer practical solutions." Later that evening, Tahoe sat in his quarters at the human diplomatic compound, composing his report to the Federation Council. His hands hesitated over the interface. Should he tell them everything? The humans were building something that violated fundamental engineering principles as understood by Relmorian science. If it worked, his communication device chimed. Admiral Sunwoo's stern face appeared on the screen. "Commander Kim, the Council has reached a decision regarding the human request for assistance." "I'm listening, Admiral." "We will offer humanitarian aid only, evacuation ships for their colony world. No military support." Tahoe nodded. It was what he expected. "I'll inform Minister Do-hyun." "There's more," Sunwoo continued. "The Council wishes to understand human military development better. You are authorized to share limited tactical information about Stherian capabilities. Perhaps it will convince them to surrender their outer colonies without resistance. And if they refuse," Sunwoo's expression darkened, "then they will learn why no one opposes the Stherians. Make this clear to them, Commander." The transmission ended. Tahoe sat in silence for several minutes. Then he deleted the draft of his report. Instead, he composed a new message, marked Priority 1. "Request permission to join human defense planning sessions as military advisor. Believe there is valuable intelligence to be gathered regarding Stherian weaknesses." 3 weeks later, Tahoe stood in the observation center at Luna Base, watching as the partially completed Thunderchild was moved from Earth to the Moon's shipyard. The massive craft moved with surprising grace despite being only 60% complete. "Impressive," noted Jiwoo, who had recently joined him as a scientific liaison. "But will it be ready in time?" "The humans have accelerated production," Tahoe replied. "They've cannibalized 3 colony ships for parts." "The Federation evacuation fleet arrives tomorrow," Jiwoo said. "The Council expects the humans to begin withdrawing from New Horizon immediately." Tahoe said nothing. He had attended enough human military planning sessions to know they had no intention of abandoning their colony. Instead, they were rushing to complete their experimental warship. Captain Gina Park entered the observation center. She now wore the uniform of the human Space Force, with the insignia of a battalion commander. "Your evacuation ships are welcome," she said without preamble. "They'll help transport civilians to safety." "All civilians?" Tahoe asked carefully. Gina's eyes met his. "Those who wish to leave." "And the others?" "Will be defended," she stated simply. Jiwoo's tendrils twitched nervously. "The Stherians will arrive with overwhelming force. Your defense satellites cannot possibly." "We're not relying on defense satellites," Gina interrupted. "Thunderchild will be operational in 12 days. "That's impossible," Jiwoo protested. "The core integration alone requires at least 30 days of testing." "We don't have 30 days," Gina replied. "So we'll make do with 12. As Gina left, Jiwoo turned to Tahoe in disbelief. "They're going to fight with an untested ship against the most powerful military force in the quadrant." Tahoe watched the Thunderchild's massive form as it was guided into the lunar construction dock. "Yes," he said quietly. "That's exactly what they're going to do." And despite everything he knew about Stherian power, despite the Federation's careful calculations and strategic retreats over decades, Tahoe felt something unexpected stirring within him. Hope. The colony world of New Horizon burned. Stherian warships, massive, bristling with weapons, orbited the planet, methodically destroying defensive installations. From the observation deck of his science vessel, Tahoe watched with Juwu and Minhyuk, maintaining their position at the edge of the system per Federation orders. Observe, record, do not engage. The humans are evacuating civilians, noted Juwu. But their military vessels are no match for Stherian destroyers. Minhyuk's scales darkened with distress. This will be over quickly. A proximity alert sounded. Tahoe turned to the sensor display, then froze. What is that? Space itself seemed to fold, a massive distortion spreading across the stars. From this ripple emerged a vessel that defied comprehension. It dwarfed the Stherian flagship, its hull gleaming with an alloy the sensors couldn't identify. The HSS Thunderchild, came a familiar voice over their comm system. Captain Gina Park, now wearing the uniform of the human Space Force. I believe you gentlemen wanted to see our approach to faster-than-light travel. The human warship moved with impossible grace for its size, positioning itself between the colony and the Stherian fleet. Weapon ports opened along its flanks, dozens, then hundreds. Their power core, whispered Juwu, staring at her readings. It's generating energy at levels that should tear the ship apart. They've combined antimatter and fusion, Minhyuk realized. The technologies are fundamentally incompatible. For us, Tahoe finished. Not for them. Tahoe gripped the edge of the console as the Ralnorian science vessel's computer struggled to analyze the human warship. Warning symbols flashed across the screen. Unknown alloys, impossible power readings, weapon systems unlike anything in the Federation database. Recording everything, Minhyuk said, his voice tight with tension. The Council won't believe this without evidence. On the main view screen, the Stherian fleet reacted to the sudden arrival. Their formation tightened, destroyers moving to protect the flagship. Green targeting beams lanced out, scanning the Thunderchild. They're assessing the threat, Tahoe observed. The comm system crackled. A new voice, harsh, mechanical, filled the observation deck. Unknown vessel, you have entered Stherian claimed space. Power down weapons and prepare to be boarded or face immediate destruction. Gina's reply was calm, almost casual. This is Captain Gina Park of the human Space Force vessel Thunderchild. You are attacking a human colony world. Withdraw your forces immediately. A laugh, cold and artificial, answered her. Human, your species is not recognized as having valid territorial claims. Your technology is primitive. Your resistance is futile. About that, Gina replied. I think you might want to update your information. The Thunderchild's weapons ports glowed with blue energy. Tahoe had never seen weapons with that signature before. They're going to attack, Juwu said in disbelief. One ship against the entire Stherian fleet. They'll be destroyed, Minhyuk agreed. The lead Stherian destroyer fired first, a barrage of energy torpedoes designed to overwhelm shields through sheer volume. The projectiles streaked toward the Thunderchild, leaving ionized trails in the vacuum. Shields at maximum, Juwu reported automatically, though she was monitoring the human ship, not their own. What happened next stunned all three Ralnorians into silence. The Thunderchild didn't evade. It didn't raise conventional shields. Instead, the space around the vessel seemed to warp slightly. The torpedoes, moments before impact, simply disappeared. Did they absorb the attack? Minhyuk whispered. Tahoe studied the readings. No, something more complex. They've created some kind of spatial fold. The weapons entered but never exited normal space. The Stherian fleet paused its assault, clearly as surprised as the Ralnorians. Then, with mechanical precision, three more destroyers moved forward, charging their main guns. Incoming transmission from the Thunderchild, Juwu reported. Gina's face appeared on screen. She looked calm, focused. Commander Kim, I suggest you move your vessel back another 1,000 kilometers. Things are about to get interesting. Captain Park, Tahoe replied. The Stherian fleet includes 7 capital ships. Each could destroy a small moon. You cannot possibly. We've studied your data on Stherian capabilities. Gina interrupted. Very thoroughly. Thank you for that, by the way. She smiled slightly. Now, please move to a safe distance. The transmission cut. Tahoe hesitated only briefly before ordering their vessel to retreat. The council ordered us to observe. He reminded his officers when they looked uncertain. We can observe from a safer distance. Minyuk agreed quickly. As their ship pulled back, the Stherian destroyers fired again. This time, their main cannons released sustained energy beams, powerful enough to cut through planetary crusts. The Thunderchild responded. From 100 points along its hull, blue-white beams lanced out. They didn't target the Stherian ships directly. Instead, they intersected with the incoming attack beams. Where they met, expanding spheres of distorted space formed, containing and nullifying the Stherian energy. Defensive counterfire, Jiwoo breathed. I've never seen anything like it. They're not just stopping the attacks, Tahoe realized. They're harvesting the energy somehow. The Thunderchild's hull began to glow slightly, power readings spiking even higher than before. Incoming transmission from the Stherian flagship, Minyuk reported. A new face appeared on screen. Unlike the destroyer commanders, this was a high-ranking Stherian, metallic skin with embedded data nodes, eyes that glowed with artificial enhancement. I am Fleet Commander Grax, the being announced. Identify yourselves, Relnorian vessel. Why do you observe this conflict? We are a science vessel, Tahoe replied cautiously. We monitor significant events in this sector. Grax's mechanical eyes narrowed. You have knowledge of this human vessel. You have aided them. We have provided no military assistance, Tahoe stated truthfully. We are here only to observe. Then observe the consequences of interference in Stherian expansion. Grax snarled. The screen went dark. Moments later, the entire Stherian fleet moved into attack formation. All 7 capital ships, plus their destroyer escorts, oriented toward the solitary human vessel. They're going to unleash everything, Jiwoo said, her voice quavering. The Stherian attack, when it came, was overwhelming. Hundreds of energy projectiles, dozens of beam weapons, missiles, and torpedoes, all launched simultaneously in a display of firepower that had conquered worlds throughout the sector. Tahoe couldn't look away. He expected the human vessel to be obliterated instantly. Instead, the Thunderchild seemed to shimmer. The space around it distorted, as if reality itself bent to the ship's will. The Stherian weapons, every single one, were caught in these distortions, their energy redirected, absorbed, or simply negated. Impossible, Minyuk whispered. When the barrage ended, the Thunderchild remained, completely undamaged. Its hull now pulsed with captured energy. Weapon ports that had glowed blue now shone with blinding white intensity. The humans have weaponized space-time itself, Jiwoo realized, her scientific mind pushing through her shock. They're using principles we theorized, but never implemented. The spatial folding technology we use for FTL travel. They've adapted it for both defense and offense. Tahoe nodded slowly. They saw possibilities we overlooked, or deemed too dangerous to explore. On the view screen, the Thunderchild began to move again, accelerating toward the Stherian fleet. It didn't fire. Not yet. It simply advanced, inexorable and threatening. New communication channels opened across all frequencies. Gina's voice rang clear. Stherian forces, you have witnessed a fraction of our capabilities. You have 2 options: withdraw from human space immediately, or face the consequences. A burst of angry Stherian language answered her. Though the translation system struggled, the meaning was clear: defiance, threats, refusal. Gina's reply was simple: very well. The Thunderchild fired. Not the hundreds of smaller weapons along its flanks, but a single massive beam from its prow. The energy signature was unlike anything in Relmorian records, not plasma, Not laser, not particle beam. It struck the nearest Stherian destroyer. The vessel didn't explode. It didn't break apart. It simply ceased to exist, leaving behind only a cloud of component atomic particles. "They've weaponized their FTL system," Tahoe said quietly. "They're breaking down matter at the subatomic level." The Stherian fleet, for the first time in recorded history, began to retreat. Their movements were no longer coordinated but chaotic, each ship seeking escape. The comm system activated again. Gina's face appeared, her expression solemn rather than triumphant. "Commander Kim, please inform your Federation Council that human space is now secure. We would welcome diplomatic discussions about mutual defense against future Stherian aggression." Tahoe stared at the screen, then at the Thunderchild, a vessel that had just rewritten the power balance of the entire sector. In a matter of minutes, humans had done what the Federation had deemed impossible for centuries. "We will relay your message, Captain Park," he replied formally. Then, dropping protocol, he added, "And Gina." That was quite the unveiling. Her serious expression broke into a small smile. "We told you our approach to faster-than-light travel was different." The Stherian response was immediate and predictable. Their lead vessels launched energy projectiles designed to overwhelm enemy shields through sheer volume of fire. The Thunderchild didn't evade. Instead, its shield envelope shimmered, absorbing the first barrage entirely. "They're using the attack to calibrate their defenses," Minhyuk realized. Learning from each hit. The human warship's counterattack was surgical. Point defense systems eliminated incoming missiles, while precision beam weapons disabled Stherian engines and weapon arrays. Not destroying, incapacitating. "Unusual tactics," noted Tahoe. "They're minimizing casualties." The Stherian admiral, enraged by this resistance, committed his flagship to the battle, a massive dreadnought that had conquered a dozen worlds. "We're detecting anomalies in the Thunderchild's lower hull," reported Juwu. "Some kind of deployment system." The human vessel released what appeared to be hundreds of small objects. Too small for ships, too large for missiles. "Manned combat suits," breathed Tahoe as the readings clarified. "They're sending soldiers." The tiny figures swarmed the Stherian vessels, cutting through hulls with handheld tools that burned hotter than stars. Inside each suit was a human warrior, adapting in real time to Stherian countermeasures. When the Stherian flagship targeted the Thunderchild with its planet-killer main cannon, the human vessel didn't retreat. Instead, it rotated, presenting a previously unseen ventral array. "Energy readings off the scale," Juwu reported, voice trembling. The Thunderchild fired. Not a weapon of destruction, but something else entirely. A field of distorted space-time enveloped the Stherian flagship, and when it dissipated, the massive vessel had been reduced to its component elements. They weaponized their FTL technology, Tahoe realized. Manipulated fundamental forces. Tahoe's eyes remained fixed on the viewscreen as he struggled to process what he had just witnessed. The Stherian flagship, 3 kilometers of armored hull and weapons systems, had simply dissolved into base particles. Nothing remained but a slowly expanding cloud of atoms. Recording complete, Minhyuk reported automatically, his scaled fingers trembling over the controls. The Council must see this. The remaining Stherian vessels regrouped, their formation adjusting to the loss of their command ship. 6 destroyer-class ships formed a defensive line while the 2 surviving dreadnoughts pulled back to safer distance. "They're going to retreat," Juwu suggested hopefully. Tahoe shook his head. The Stherians have never retreated from battle. Not once in recorded history. As if confirming his words, the destroyer line surged forward. Their weapons fired in unison, not at the Thunderchild, but at the human colony below. Massive energy beams struck New Horizons' surface, targeting population centers. "They're attacking civilians," gasped Juwu, her tendrils twisting in distress. The Thunderchild reacted instantly. Its shields extended downward, forming a protective umbrella over the colony. The Stherian beams struck this barrier and scattered, Their energy dispersed harmlessly into space. Gina's voice came over the comm system, calm but tight with controlled anger. Targeting civilian populations violates galactic conventions of warfare. You have been warned. What followed stunned the Ralnorian observers. From hatches along the Thunderchild's hull emerged hundreds of small craft, each barely large enough for a single occupant. They were not ships in the conventional sense, but armored suits with integrated propulsion systems. Human space marines, Tahoe identified, recalling a briefing from Earth's Defense Ministry. I didn't know they had deployed such technology. The suited warriors moved with incredible speed, closing the distance to the Stherian destroyers in seconds. When defensive fire targeted them, they performed evasive maneuvers that would have killed any Ralnorian pilot, twisting, spinning, accelerating at forces that should have crushed their bodies. Their biology allows them to withstand higher G-forces than most species, Ju noted, her scientific curiosity temporarily overcoming her shock. And they've augmented these suits with some kind of inertial dampening. The Space Marines reached the Stherian ships and attached themselves to the hulls like parasites. Using tools that glowed with intense heat, they began cutting through the armored plating. What are they doing? Minhyuk wondered. Those ships have internal defense systems. Tahoe zoomed the sensors to focus on one of the boarding teams. They're not trying to capture the ships. They're targeting specific systems, weapons, engines, life support. The Stherian vessels began to drift, their key systems failing one by one. No explosions, no dramatic destruction, just systematic incapacitation. This isn't how the Stherians fight, Minhyuk said quietly. They destroy everything in their path. The humans are disabling instead of destroying. Mercy, Tahoe realized. They're showing mercy to an enemy that has never shown any. On the comm screen, Gina's face appeared again. Commander Kim, please inform your superiors that we've disabled most of the Stherian fleet. The remaining dreadnoughts are preparing their main weapons. You should retreat, Captain, Tahoe advised. Those weapons can. We know what they can do, Gina interrupted. We've studied your records thoroughly. The two Stherian dreadnoughts had indeed moved into firing position. These vessels were second only to the destroyed flagship in size and power. Each carried a singularity cannon, a weapon that created a momentary artificial black hole at the target point. They're going to destroy the entire colony, Ju whispered. Nothing can stop those weapons. Tahoe wasn't so certain anymore. The humans had already demonstrated technology beyond anything the Federation had thought possible. The dreadnoughts fired. Twin beams of concentrated exotic matter streaked across space toward New Horizon. The colony's doom seemed certain. The Thunderchild moved with impossible speed, positioning itself directly in the path of the beams. Instead of raising shields, it opened what appeared to be massive intake ports along its ventral surface. They're trying to absorb the attack. Minhyuk questioned, disbelief evident in his voice. Not absorb, Tahoe corrected as the readings became clear. Channel. The singularity beams struck the Thunderchild's intakes. For a moment, the ship shuddered, its hull glowing with strain. Warning signals flashed across the Ralnorian sensors, indicating imminent structural failure of the human vessel. But the Thunderchild held. Somehow, impossibly, it channeled the devastating energy through its internal systems. The ship's dorsal section began to glow with accumulated power. They've redirected the energy, Ju said in amazement. They're using the attack against the attackers. The Thunderchild's main weapon charge, drawing power both from its own cores and the captured Stherian attack. When it fired, the beams split into two perfect streams, each targeting one of the dreadnoughts. The result was not the atomic dissolution they had witnessed before. Instead, the beams struck with surgical precision, cutting through the dreadnought's command centers. The massive ships went dark, their weapons powering down, their engines failing. Disabled, not destroyed, Tahoe noted. The Space Marines regrouped, many returning to the Thunderchild, while others moved to secure the drifting Stherian vessels. Taiho watched in fascination as the humans established boarding parties, entering the enemy ships not to slaughter survivors, but to take control. Gina's voice returned over the comm. "Commander Kim, the battle is over. The Stherian threat to New Horizon has been neutralized." "Captain Park," Taiho replied formally, "the Ralnorian Federation congratulates you on your victory." "Not a victory, Commander," Gina corrected. "A demonstration." Taiho understood the message behind her words. This hadn't just been about defending a colony. It was a statement to the galaxy. Humans were not to be underestimated. Later, as the Ralnorian vessel maintained its observation position, Taiho received permission to shuttle over to the Thunderchild. He found Gina on the command deck, overseeing the recovery of her Space Marine teams. "Your tactics were unexpected," he told her as they stood before a massive viewport. Below them, New Horizon continued its orbit, its cities still intact, its people saved. "How so?" she asked, though her slight smile suggested she knew exactly what he meant. "The Stherians destroy. The Federation avoids conflict. You, disabled and captured." Taiho hesitated. "No species has ever taken Stherian prisoners before." "They're not prisoners," Gina corrected. "They're now aware of other possibilities." "Possibilities. That strength doesn't require cruelty. That technology can protect as well as destroy." She turned to face him directly. "The Stherian Empire expanded because no one showed them a better way. We intend to." Taiho considered her words. In all his years of diplomatic service, he had never encountered such thinking. The Federation survived through careful neutrality. The Stherians thrived through domination. Humans appeared to have found a third path, strength with restraint. "The Federation Council will want to understand your technology," he said finally. "And we're prepared to share it," Gina replied. "Under the right circumstances." As Taiho prepared to return to his vessel, he paused at the airlock. "The Battle of New Horizon will be remembered in history texts throughout the galaxy." Gina smiled. "Yes, as the day everything changed."